Our clock on the wall is a little bit quicker than my watch, so we'll go by it. We're going to open this evening with our tax rate hearing. Dr. Langford, the floor is yours.
I might need those, yes, thank you. By law, we're required to have a hearing for the taxes. We will not do an action in this hearing. It's an opportunity for anyone who wishes to speak relative to the tax rate or have any answers, question about what you see. If we could just quickly kind of take a look, if you would go through, if you've gone to the link on your homepage or look on the board, but actually this is a comparison of the prior year assessed valuation to the current year, 2018, and we speak in terms of calendar years. If you notice, we had a fairly significant increase in assessed valuation this year, which surprised us a little bit. It was 3%, and we weren't really expecting that. We've been running about 1.2 to 1.5%. But if we think about it, Newton County was the one that gave us the bump. They did it because, and we don't really have the comparison data, but this is just information. If you remember, we opened a new hotel on south of 32nd Street, which is in Newton County. And then there was a personal property increase in commercial property. The commercial was the hotel. But Empire moved some trucks that had been housed in Jasper County into Newton County. So as a result of that, we had a very nice growth in the assessed valuation, largely because of Newton County, but still had a decent growth in Jasper County as well. So this is just a printout. It shows you what the total assessed valuation is. It does not show you what the tax rate was last year. The tax rate was $2.7929. And if you remember, we rolled it up from $2.75 because the district had been taking a voluntary rollback. And we did it because we had had a decrease of $12 million in assessed value of existing property. We had quite a discussion, of explanation about why that is. Well, this year we had a very, very minimal increase. So as a result, there was no need to roll that back. But if you notice the calculated amount there, it's $2.7864. That is 0.0465 less than a year ago. The question would be, well, why would it be less than a year ago? And the reason for that is, for the last 2 years, Newton County has done a correction in October. And that was about $2 million more last October than what we had been provided in July when the calculation was made. So this reflects the understatement of assessed valuation that we did not have. We didn't have the correct amount. And it's just, this happens because they have appeals that are going on, and you know, you understand all of that, and but it was $2 million more. So as a result, our tax rate that we calculate that we are eligible to use is about 1/2 cent less than a year ago. It's not a major material amount of money, but it is a little bit lower. I would tell you that the calculated rate, because the district has been doing voluntary rollbacks for a good while, actually $3.12, $3.12, 0.70, you know, in addition to the 12, would be what the district could, if it had saw the need to levy, it could levy that amount. But it would require, in this hearing or a separate hearing, an explanation as to why you're wanting to raise that up, and an opportunity for people to come in and be heard on that particular question. Tonight, we're not recommending that. We believe that we can move forward with continuing that rate. So we are continuing the voluntary rollback. Next year, on even numbered years, we could have rolled closer to that 312. Odd numbered years, you cannot. But for calculation purpose, once you've established a rollback, that becomes your starting point. And you maximize then the difference between what you could and your starting point does require a hearing. We're not recommending that tonight. If we would scan on through that, I would just show you the documents that we work from. Jasper County submits us each year. This is, there's a format. I have a spreadsheet that I use, and then we also then validate it with the what we get from the state auditor's office, but this is kind of a, if you could stop right there, this is sort of what we get, the information we have. And you notice in Jasper County, new construction of $8.5 million. So we're continuing to see houses go up in areas that are outside a TIF area or in this special zone in this particular center part of town that it's been in because of the destruction that was there. So we're continuing to have some new construction that has been going on in Jasper County. If you can scroll on, it's the same information. The layout is just a little bit different from Newton County as compared, but it's basically the identical information. And then in Jasper, or in Newton County, they had $6.4 million in new construction. And again, we attribute much of that. I talked to Jim Odie, who's in Newton County, and really, unless they went into every file, they can't tell you exactly where it is. But we attribute a good bit of this to the, when we compare the areas where we saw growth to the fact that we opened the new facility on South 32nd Street. So we get that information. And if you'll scroll on through that, this is actually the calculation sheets that are provided for us that we enter the data in, run the numbers, combining from the two counties, so we get the total 927 assessed valuation, and you're comparing to prior years and what have you. And then if you'll scroll on through that, I think there's one additional page. And then this is the calculation sheet with which we come up with the assessed valuation, and then also what we're able, the $2.78, scroll back the other direction, stop, Barry. I want to look at this sheet just a little bit more because I want to point out one other thing. The 278 is right there at the bottom. That's what we saw on page 1 of what we're recommending. Oh.
It lasted for a while, Eric.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, we're all right. We're all right. Anyway, we did have a very modest growth in the reassessment or an assessment of existing properties. So as a result of that, we were able to, it impacted our levy by 12 thousandths of 1 point or something. So it yielded a benefit to the district for both the operating and the debt service of about $41,000, so to that. So we calculate that, and we'll go on to the next page. Oh, you're up there taking care of that.
You can multitask.
He can do it. Yes, he can.
Yes, there you go. Point it right against that. Just keep going.
Yeah, scroll on down a little bit. Right there. This is the calculation. What we just looked at was the operating, the operating funds for just general operations, funds 1 and 2. This is for debt service. And we have to calculate a levy to sufficient to pay the principal and interest for general obligation bonds. We have to do that by law. And last year, we ran that calculation, and it was more than what we're seeing right here. But this year, we could levy $1.23 and fall within what the state allows us for the general obligation bonds. We don't need to do that. You've not been doing that. And we will be recommending during the meeting that you continue the 91-cent levy as you have in the past. So these are the documents that we worked through. And so, Mr. President, I know we've hurriedly gone through these, but if someone has any questions, I'd be glad to help you.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Langford? There being none, we'll move forward with our community development block grant for construction of Joplin Early Childhood Center. This is Dr. Cerquetta's item.
Do you want me to go ahead and read the script?
Please.
Okay. The purpose of this public hearing is to provide an opportunity for citizens to comment on the Joplin Schools' performance in carrying out a community development block grant project to construct an early childhood center. The project was funded with community development block grants from the state of Missouri and the city of Joplin following the Joplin tornado. The Joplin schools received $9,750,000 to construct a 40,000 square foot early childhood center. The construction is now complete and the early childhood center is operational. And I just want to add, I want to thank everybody involved in the project again, from the city, the state, Steve Etcher's group, and everybody locally, and all the input of all the teachers, faculty members, staff members, and so on. And I want to thank Dave Pettit and everybody else involved with the project, as well as Crossan Construction and the architects, Hollis and Miller, and so on. It was an excellent project, and the board as well for working with us and holding us accountable month by month and the spending of what was going on, and to be good stewards of the dollars that we had. If anyone has any comments to express regarding the school's performance, the hearing is open for comment.
Guess not.
Going once, going twice. Okay. Doesn't sound like there's any other comments on the project. I want to thank everybody for their input. They're hearing there's no additional comments. This public hearing is now closed.
Thank you, Dr. Skeda. I'd now like to welcome everybody to the August 28th Joplin Schools Board of Education meeting. Roll call, please, Pat.
Jennifer Martucci.
Here.
Derek Gander.
Present.
Lori Musser.
Here.
Dr. Ford.
Present.
Fred Jordan.
Present.
Deborah Gould. Here. Sheriff Dermott.
Here. Thank you, Pat. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving to the agenda, we've got some changes to make. We need to remove item F3D, F3D. We need to remove item G13. We would add an item F31, a consulting agreement between Joplin Schools and EMINTS Professional Development, September 17, 2018. F31.
Would you repeat that, please, Sherry? What was the G we were deleting?
We're deleting
regular agenda.
G13. With those two removals and that one addition, I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deborah. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the amended agenda. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you all. Time to celebrate. Got a lot of celebrations this evening. Let me see if I can find them real quick. I'll do it. Here they are. Those going to go up on the board? Yeah, that's great. We can see right through the, luckily our collapsible stick is the right color. We're going to start with our Golden Apple Awards for 2018. I'll let Eric catch up with us real quick. There they are. 2 teachers from Joplin Schools were honored last spring as Golden Apple recipients at the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce banquet. This is the 33rd year for the program, which recognizes excellence in the teaching profession. Educators were nominated by students, parents, or fellow teachers. Carrie Fields of Jefferson Elementary, kindergarten to 2nd grade, won for that division, and for 6th to 8th grades, Sherry Wright of East Middle School won. We congratulate our Golden Apple Award winners for 2018. Joplin Schools Health Benefit and Retail Therapy Fair. Joplin Schools' 3rd Health Benefit and Retail Therapy Fair was a huge hit with 120 vendors welcoming the 400-plus employees that attended. Freeman and Mercy hospitals were represented along with other health providers offering screenings and a wide variety of health information. Attendees gathered information on insurance, banking, fitness, and enjoyed shopping, crafters, boutiques, direct sellers, and food trucks. Dorothy Alcents, Joplin Schools Development Specialist, organized the event along with the HR team. How I spent my summer vacation 2018. Let's take a look at how the staff and students of Joplin Schools spent their valued time away from the classroom. Katie Brown, a teacher at Joplin High School, on August 9th, she submitted this. On August 9th, the Joplin High School Fusion Program hosted freshman orientation for the class of 2022. 481 incoming freshmen attended the event. Thank you, Bright Futures and Joplin Schools, for your continued support. This is one I want to know about. Dale Hoggett, a fourth grade teacher at Cecil Floyd, got special treatment at Mount Vernon. He participated in the George Washington Mount Vernon Teacher Institute in summer residency. He lived for a week on the Washington property and had amazing access to the estate, studying under 25 scholars for 35 hours of professional development. I'm sure that was a fantastic experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kelly Pyle at Franklin Tech Center Business and Marketing Instructor submitted the fact that the dance team participated in a 3-day dance camp and attended dance workouts twice a week to prepare for fall performances. Alicia Thomas tells us that the summer school at Soaring Heights was awesome in first grade. We were able to tie STEAM and STEM activities to most of our literacy activities. The kiddos had a blast creating and problem solving for characters in our stories. This is one of the STEM projects we created, Straw Rockets. I know how that goes. We have that before, I bet. Darren Morgan at North Middle School Summer School indicates that we did a local history project featuring the 1903 lynching of Thomas Gilliard at the corner of 2nd and Wall Avenue in Joplin. The class was centered on racial injustices and how those have affected the 21st century, as well as raising awareness of Joplin's past. We visited several pertinent sites related to the events of 1903, and we laid the groundwork for a documentary, filming, interviewing, etc. It looks like this lower picture is at the Joplin Depot. Michelle Espinosa, on behalf of the Joplin High School choirs, the Joplin High School show choirs held 2 weeks of summer camp. Touch of Class, our unisex division, met for a week to start learning all their show music and the choreography for 2 of their numbers for this year's competition season. Sound Dimension, our mixed division, also met for a week to learn all of their show music as well as the choreography for 2 and a half of the numbers of their competition show. Additionally, both groups enjoyed the opportunity to begin to get to know each other, building bonds of friendship through music that will last a lifetime. Mike Wassenaar, I hope that I'm not mispronouncing these names. I apologize if I am. Our band director at Joplin High School says that the Eagle Marching Band spent 2 long weeks in summer band camp to get ready for the marching band season. This year's show is Trapped and should be a competitive as well as entertaining show for the audience. Misty Meads, Joplin High School Speech and Debate, indicates that Megan Peterson, Cora Wesley, and I attended the National Speech and Debate Association tournament in Florida this summer. I hope that they had a great trip. Dave Pettit, Director of Facilities, submitted the fact that his staff constructed additional classroom spaces at Kelsey Norman, McKinley, and Dunaweg, the Beacon School. They also moved equipment and supplies for the MEC FTC remodel project. I certainly thank them for their work. That's the end of our celebrations tonight. I would like to applaud everyone's efforts this summer. Oh, and there's a video.
We have a
that
huge
I'm going to
celebration.
send that off to Sarah
Yes.
Mwangi. She's going to tell us about the video. I was told about that.
So we just wrapped up open enrollment for our new benefits on Thursday. So as you can imagine, that was a huge task for not only our HR team and Jamie with BPJ, but we decided this task had to involve our administrators, so we incentivized a little bit to get them to rally their troops. So we had some fun and put together a little video to show you how that went.
It's over here.
Whatever happened to Let's watch it over here.
I think it was great. We had a mindset on one thing, that was our goal, set to it. We all literally sat down and took it one click at a time. We really did. And that's what got us to the finish line.
What you need? What? I want. Well, I'm just trying to figure out my lunch. My what? I want lunch out and jeans for myself? Well, I don't want that lunch menu. This. Awesome. Okay, come back with me for lunch.
So as you can see, North Middle School was our large school, first place. Beacon was our small school. Mythos has graciously donated and catered a lunch for each of those staffs. And then I will be covering Miss Heather to have a duty-free lunch one day, and we will also have some Eagle Pride days for them. So the projections that we brought to you when we proposed where we thought we would be with enrollment, Dr. Langford and I had many conversations within percents of what we projected of where we're at. So when we looked at how we were funding that and the whole process we went through, we are right on target. So.
You were up 38, Stephen?
Yes, and we are up as far as enrollment. So we have more employees who have chosen to enroll in our health care and benefits.
Right. And those, when will the, so it starts on October 1st, right?
October 1st.
So that's when their new premiums will take effect also,
Correct.
right?
And we pay a month ahead of time, so it's actually going to take effect before then.
In September.
In their first paycheck of this year, the new premiums will be reflected. So
Okay, great.
they'll realize that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sarah Monge, for that report. Fun video, by the way. So great
had
job
fun.
on that. I'd ask that the Board of Education Policy Committee provide us an update. Either Deborah Gould, Jennifer Martucci, or Brent Jordan. Anybody got a report for us?
We have same policies on for second read in the consent agenda, so there were no changes to those. And then we have 2 new policies, and it was just clarifying administrator vacation time is all those 2. You can see those changes, so that was all we had. So it was a good meeting. Our next meeting, we have some updates that Pat is expecting from MSBA, and if we get them in time, then we have our next meeting set for, when is it?
Third week of September?
It was a different,
I'd have to look at my calendar.
I think it's that second week, didn't we? Anyways, we scheduled a meeting in September, and if anyone wants to know when it is.
Thank you, Jennifer. Does anybody have any questions for the Policy Committee? How about our Safety and Security Committee?
I'll give that update, and I'll have to refer to my notes because we did a lot. The first thing was Jim Houndshell gave a presentation on 2 different cameras that we have considered for the elementaries, and we looked at 2 options. Dr. Moss asked us to review a 3rd option, so we're in the process of reviewing the 3rd option right now. The second thing that we did is we looked at our policy on bullying, the language in bullying. We broke it down into 3 different parts. It's repetitive or substantially likely to be repeated. It substantially interferes with education performance, or it substantially disrupts the orderly operations. If the incident meets one of those 3, then the principal can determine that to be bullying. Dr. Saketa did or will do an intern meeting with all the principals to explain the new policy so that we're on top of that. Third thing that happened was Eric Pitcher came and talked about a new technology filter called Securely, and what that will do will hit the email that students might be sending or messages that show anything of concern. So if it's something related to suicide, inappropriate conversations, this new filter catches it immediately so we can be on top of that. And our next meeting is October 11th.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Very good report. Does anybody have any questions in connection with that?
I do. The bullying thing, is that to match our current policy, or do we need to make changes in policy to?
No, the policy, I think the way the procedures we were using to determine bullying on the ground when it happened was not matching exactly the policy language that had been sent out by MSBA and passed by the state of Missouri. So I think what we tried to do more than anything was be very accurate in the way we're defining bullying, not requiring several different conditions to be met, but only one condition to be met. And so what the committee did also over the summer, or what I put together a little committee of principals, is we worked on the language or the scoring guide, rubric, or the examples, so to speak, so that when a principal has what they believe to be as bullying, they can refer to it and have some kind of analogy to see if it meets one of those conditions.
I was wondering, because we've worked on that policy in committee in the last year, so.
It's more of a procedural issue.
Yes,
so it's more.
Yeah, it really was about procedures and dealing with the policy, not the policy itself.
Not the policy.
And Dr. Saketa reviewed that at our principal's meeting as well.
Yeah.
So
We had good discussion about whether bullying is repetitive. You know, does it have to happen more than one time, or can one time just be bullying? And so that's why when we looked at the 3 different conditions and determined only one of those conditions has to be met.
Well, it sounds like a great conversation, so I'm glad that you're having that.
And it was needed, and actually it came out of the policy committee before, and Sherrick had enlightened us about some things in the language, and I think that's what the committee's for.
Discussion.
Just to improve the process.
Very robust conversation.
Yes, yes it was.
I just was wondering if that's something that needs to come back to the policy committee and we need to re-review that or not.
No,
So-
You know, it's one thing
fine.
to just adopt policies. It's another thing to implement them, and that goes a long way towards it. So I congratulate that group on their work.
Yeah.
Superintendent's data reports.
yes, we have health and dental as well as financial statements, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Langford.
So do you have that up there? The health and dental report, you know, this kind of, we'll have one more that's still under the old plan as far as finances are concerned, but basically we've continued a good trend as far as the health funds are concerned. We've grown the balances from a year ago this time in the health fund by close to $2 million, just slightly under it. So in the health fund, as of the 31st of July, we had $5,412,000. So that very, very pleased with that. The dental fund continued to grow, but it's about to change. And so we're changing dental plans, and so the cost will increase. And we've agreed to, and part of that was to improve the dental plan, and we would utilize the balance, which as of last month was $395,000. That will start going down because we're going to start paying on that. If you could go a page or two, Eric, I just wanted to make a couple of points. The sheets, hold it right there if you would, please. The sheets you see are just like you get every month. If you would look right in the center where it says interest earned, well, one thing's kind of interesting about tonight's meeting. It was a year ago at the August meeting, the decision was made to review the bids and accept the new banking agreement, and it started yielding us some money. And then we moved forward a couple, 3 months later into the Missouri Municipal Investment Program. And so you can see there are 4 little entries for interest into the health fund. So it's starting to generate interest. And we really believe that in the course of this year, the health fund will earn potentially $100,000 in interest. So that is good. If you have a good balance, and that's key, and we keep it invested, we watch it very closely and have it invested. So I just wanted to point that out. If you would go on then to the next page, and this is still about the health fund. And the health fund, you will see, with the exception of the interest, which has been added in prior months. But let's go on to the dental page one more, Eric, I believe. Will get us where we want to go. Right on. And if you will stop right there. In the past, of course, we weren't earning interest. Well, now that we've made the decision on the dental plan to start depleting it, we are accruing interest to the dental plan to help us extend the life of that balance, potentially an additional time. We had predicted that if we had an annual 7% increase in the premium, it would take 8 years before we exhausted the balance, any interest we accrued to that. So you will start seeing on future statements this sheet, which you have not seen relative to the dental plan going forward, but we will have some interest earned. But then we will start seeing some cost increases because actually the price of the dental plan is going up. But just wanted to share that with you as we get ready to move into the new year. Revenue will decrease under the new health plan because the premiums are lower. But I keep telling Jamie, you promised here, and we're going to be hoping we can deliver. And she did deliver on those percentages of her prediction. I was just amazed at how close that she was. So with optimism and the fact that we do have some good fund balances in place, and we try to keep that invested well, and we'll continue to do that. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you have about the health and dental plan.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Langford concerning our health and dental insurance reports?
Financials.
We want to extend over to the financial statements, and if you could roll down about 4 pages, I think, Eric. I want to go to this sheet right here. You get a lot of information, plus you get a whole lot more information that isn't shown here in your report. But this is the, we started last year giving this to you, showing you how much money we have and comparing it to the prior year. I think that gives us a better basis. This, what you're looking at now, the one thing that is different about it, in the prior years, we had the health fund in there. And remember when we set the budget, we recommended that it be extracted from the operational budget and considered as a fiduciary fund, because all it was doing was inflating our expenditures and our revenue. So if we had the health fund in this, we would have been looking, instead of 85 million, we'd have been looking at close to 93 million. So that's gone. It will not be there. You will get the monthly reports just like you've been getting, so you'll know the status of all of that. But it's now a fiduciary fund. So when we look at that, that is the only major difference that you will see in this comparative report that we provide. Now at the bottom, if you could just go down right there, we put this information in, and that unless there's some kind of a correction that needs to be made, those numbers will remain the same all year long. That tells you how much money we have. Debt service is a non-discretionary fund. It can only be used for the payment of principal and interest on the debt service fund. We actually took out the money that we've set aside in the escrow account to pay off the Bank of America in 2020, so it's not in there. So our capital projects fund had $4 million, and our unrestricted incidental fund had over $20 million when we ended. And actually, we ended with a nice increase over the prior year. So the beginning of this year, the school, Joplin schools are in an excellent financial condition moving forward, and assuming there's not something drastic occur within this year, we'll be well positioned for you to start thinking in terms of the following year. And the only thing that I would say, as far as our expenditures seem in line pretty well, Last year in the capital projects, as far as federal funds were concerned, if you look to the far right, that's 17 on the right-hand side, we had gotten more federal money and revenue. Well, that's because of the money we got for the early childhood program. Well, that money's gone, so as a result, our federal funding next year will be down considerably, but we don't get that one-time money in to help repay for the cost of that. If you look on the expenditure side, we're right in, but the only thing that is different, would be a significant difference compared to a year ago, would be the expenditures for this year in the teachers fund of $942,000 is not quite twice, but it's certainly a good bit more than a year ago of $489,000. What is the difference? Expanded summer school. So if you look at the comparative data for the financial data for this year compared to the prior year, we're very much in line, except the federal funding will go down all year long compared to the prior year. And because we had salary increases and increased summer school and a few staff, we'll see the teachers fund going up. But that major hike you see is summer school, expanded summer school. I'll be glad to answer any questions, or attempt to.
Thank you. That's good news also.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Langford, for those reports. We're to our public comments regarding agenda action items. Do we have any public comments? Thank you, Pat. We're to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. It's been moved and seconded that we approve our consent agenda as amended. Please vote.
Could we have some discussion, just
Sure.
a little bit?
Absolutely.
I see that one of the things on the consent agenda is the MOU between us and Ozark Center. And I read a great article in the Globe about all the things Carthage School District is doing to address teen suicide, and I know we're doing great things too, and that's what this MOU talks about in part. So I was hoping that someone here could tell us, what are the things we're doing in Joplin schools?
I think we can address a lot of things tonight, and I also am looking at Sandra Cantwell and Steve Gilbert because I know they've been working alongside for many things. The MOU that's in your consent agenda is between Joplin School Districts and Ozark Center to also provide school-based mental health at Joplin High School, and that's what you're referring to that you heard that Carthage was doing as well. With the new changes in law on Medicaid billing and whatnot, then they'll be able to bill for those services, but we'll be able to have that person housed at the school servicing our students, which should expand opportunities. But it goes beyond just school-based mental health. We're also looking at opportunities through Missouri Southern to increase our social workers in our schools, as well as we have one through University of Arkansas at the high school and UMKC. Then we also have kicked off the year with Phil Campbell, which I think many of you were able to be there for his presentation, and really looking at what are we doing proactively to help that situation, and culture, and building community. We know our high school's very large, but we've really tackled hard at the beginning of school and throughout the year to beef up our transitions curriculum, to raise awareness for mental health issues and suicide prevention. All of our teachers had a suicide awareness training as part of their pre-service training that took place this year. And we had an interview, Sandra and I, with our Spyglass students. That's our high school publication, and they were asking those same questions. And we talked about how it really begins student to student and having culture of respect and kindness, and then really seeking to remove the stigma that we found last year is present in telling an adult when you know either yourself or one of your peers is in crisis that it's okay and it's the right thing to do, and that's a lot what our transitions curriculum has tried to address. And I know I'm leaving things out. What are some other things that you might could share, Steve or Sandra?
Well, I think it's exciting because we have 9 additional people, the 5 bachelor level interns from Missouri Southern, the UMKC one, the University of Arkansas, those are both graduate level. And then with the MOU, an Ozark Center therapist who will have an office at Joplin High School and will be serving their clients. They won't have to leave the building to go for their therapy. If there is a crisis with one of those kids, they can serve them there. But she's also going to work with the counselors. So if there is a student with a crisis that they don't see, she can point them in the right direction for services, and then potentially have that student as a client as well. She's worked in California in a school district as a therapist. Melissa Moore says she's the best, that they gave us the very best, and so that's exciting to have her. We also have John Godfrey that we've contracted with. He is working with some of the schools. And then the liaison that we have for the 3 middle schools, just in the week, and have we been in school a little over 1 week now? She has met with families for kids that are homebound because of depression and anxiety to try to come up with a plan. She really knows how to speak the language. The parents are listening to her. She's a qualified mental health provider, master's level, and so to be able to talk to them about a plan so that these students aren't just home forever being depressed or anxious about school. What is the plan to get them back? Yesterday, she worked with one of the middle schools for a crisis situation and getting the student the help that they needed. So that's very exciting when we look at the number of kids that were out of school because of homebound or in hospitals like Heartland, Lakeland, Royal Oaks, those places last year at the middle school level. It was just astounding. And so we have someone there who is that person that is working with the school, with the hospitals, with the families to try to make sure that the right supports are in place, to know what the plan is when they leave the hospital. So I'm very, very excited about that. The bachelor level social workers are in elementary, so we really have 9 additional supports spread throughout the district. We have a social worker that works at Beacon now that is meeting with all of those interns weekly, and one from early childhood that is also a part of that group. So they're building their own little community so that when a kid leaves elementary and goes to middle school, our liaison that is there, we don't lose a kid in the process of them transitioning or from middle school to high school. So that's an exciting thing. We also have block parties that are getting ready to start at Joplin High School. The Joplin Safe Teens Coalition received funding for block parties, and the purpose of those is to create community within hallways. When you have 2,200 students, sometimes kids just get lost, but they're going to have all of the kids from one hallway during a 90-minute transition class in the gym, where they're going to do some things to talk about. They're going to have some fun things and try to build community, but also build protective factors and resiliency amongst the student body.
Sandra, is that the relationship with the Alliance?
Yes.
Is that who's helping us with that?
Yeah. Another thing that happened with the Alliance that was just incredible is they met with the elementary school counselors and said, how can we support you? Well, at the elementary level, they didn't feel like going into the classroom and talking about suicide was the right thing to do, but how do we help these kids know how to respond? How do we give them the tools to know how to respond when there's a crisis in their life or their family? So again, the Alliance was able to purchase 385 books that, well, they can use in full classrooms, or they can do small groups or even individual lessons with kids in hopes of helping them build resiliency and navigate life in a healthier way. So I think that's exciting. We have an updated list from One Joplin that we can share with parents of available resources. And we have another form that we can use through Will's Place, where if a parent says, I just don't know what to do, and the school's having problems and we're having problems at home, where together with the school we can use this form, and then it gives them a list of resources, but also they can take that so that the therapist or whomever they see knows some of the things that we're seeing in the school. Then Steve can talk about the suicide awareness prevention and committee that we have, the mental health task force where we have community members in the school, and then the truancy officer that we have for the whole district that's stationed at Joplin High School. The goal is to work with students and families, not to be punitive, but to try to figure out, why is this kid being absent so much, rather than saying, okay, this is what's going to happen if you don't get your kid to school. How can we support you? And the juvenile office has developed They've got lots of wraparound services and different groups at the juvenile office that they can work with. And and Title IV, yes. We also have, through the new Title IV funds, which is how we have the qualified mental health provider, the liaison, through Ozark Center, but we also have funds, and we're creating teams right now, starting in September, where our behavior techs and specialists in the elementary schools, the principals, the assistant principals who are dealing with discipline, the school psych, the process coordinators, teams of people will get together, and some of the staff from Crowder that are trained in behaviors of BCBA and BCABAs will be working with them on strategies. John Godfrey will be a part of that. They'll do that every month, so that if a kid leaves Irving, although they may be doing great things, they may go to Soaring Heights and they may be doing different things. And so just to support each other, Irving can share what they're doing, and maybe Royal Heights decides, wow, we hadn't thought of that. We just have all of these behavior people that we're paying with our title funds, but they are almost islands in their buildings. So how do we create community within that group so that we support the kids as they move from building to building, or build capacity amongst each other? So those are some of the things that we're doing. And Steve, I think you were going to talk about
we have
suicide.
The group, all the counselors, elementary counselors, middle school, high school, and several principals from around the district. We've met last year ongoing, and it included several people from the community, mental health facilities, and the Alliance, and Jen Black, and several people. And we've developed protocols for making everybody in the buildings aware of, okay, so when you see the signs, like, or if a student claims, hey, I'm having, self-harm thoughts. So what do I do? How do I take? What do I do if it's serious? So if it's just something that needs to be addressed through maybe not making self-harm claims, then how do we put the right resources to help those kids? And then when it is something that is serious, then how do we respond to that? So we have kind of a graphic chart of to follow this, to follow that, do this, do that. So a plan that we've put together to address all of those needs. And I think too, with the Title IV funds, that I think one of the things that will be, to me, that seems exciting, is that we've put in there some cameras, so like swivel cameras that can record things that are going on in the classroom, and then like behavioral specialists can look at that and say, hey, you may try this, here's a great strategy to try that. So in other words, they're seeing things live and not just, well, when I work with the kid, this is happening and that's happening. They're actually seeing it and hearing it. And I'm pushing for FBI communication in the air, but we haven't gotten to that yet. But
Thank you very much.
There's a lot going on with that, and yeah. And actually, several of the counselors have reached out to area schools, that people that they know, and hey, what kinds of things are you guys doing, and trying to get the expertise from all over the area, and just bring the best things that we can to Joplin, and put something in place right away, rather than just admiring the problem.
We want every kid to belong, to feel like they have a purpose, and we also want them to know where to get help, and that Dr. Moss mentioned removing the stigma. We want them to feel like it's okay, but we also want them to know who to reach out to, and for the staff to know the direction to point them in, to have the supports in place for our kids.
So if anybody'd like to see our draft plan, we sometime share it with you later.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone who just responded, and I'd like to thank Dr. Ford for asking the question. So I appreciate everybody's efforts on this very difficult subject.
I think one thing that we learned through the interview is we talk about these things amongst ourselves sometimes, but the student reporter, she said, wow, when I was going into this interview, I thought I was already done. I was just going to listen to you guys for a few minutes, but she said, I'm going to have to rewrite my story because we had no idea as a student body that you guys were doing these things and putting these supports in place. So I think we have to make sure that we're letting people know what is available as well.
I'll remind the board members that there is a motion and second on the floor. I ask that you vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you all. We move to our regular agenda, the Columbia Safe Room Additional Subsurface Investigation. Dr. Saketa.
Okay, I have several gentlemen going to come up and join us here because this is a complex issue, and I want to make sure that the community knows, especially the board tonight, before you get ready to hopefully approve what we're asking for, is that you understand the brevity of the issues that we're facing at Columbia. I also want to frame the conversation with this has been, we've been looking at this for quite some time. Several different things have been tested. Sometimes whenever you do these kinds of work, especially underground, when you don't know what's there and you think you have a good idea what's there because you spent X amount of dollars to do it, sometimes you feel like that maybe you have to go back and redo it and look at it again because things might be deeper than what you had thought in the first place. So Dave and I have been discussing this issue for well over a year to a year and a half. Kyle Denham is here, who's been with the project since the Columbia Safe Room with his design and his oversight when it was constructed. Brian Norr's here with Toss and Associates, and he's worked with us on numerous occasions, coming and giving us advice on the safe room and everything that goes along with that. And the other gentleman here from Palmerton? Brandon Parrish, right? Yes. Yeah, Brandon Parrish from Palmerton and Parrish is here, and we've been working with Palmerton and Parrish to make sure that we get the best geotechnical work that we can. And I'm going to, and of course Dave is here with us too, but I'm going to let Kyle start, and I'll let all the gentlemen speak a little bit and then entertain any questions that you may have about how we're trying to mediate this issue.
As you may remember, we contracted with Helitech to install some micropiles to try to stabilize the settlement that was occurring over there. And as Helitech started their performing their borings, I think they had 3 or 4 of the borings installed. The first 2 went pretty well. The third one went much deeper than they had anticipated, and they never did hit the bedrock, but they got into some very soft, uncontrolled fill. Then, as they were working on that one, they were trying to grout the other 2. In the micropiles, there is still rod that go down to bedrock, and they're grouted into bedrock, at least 6 foot into solid bedrock. And then as they're grouting it, it grouts the hole that it drilled. So it's a concrete grouted hole with a steel rod left in place. As they got up to about 40 foot with their grout on the first 2, the grout started spreading out. So they had hit some sort of horizontal void on the first 2, and they couldn't get it to hold the grout, which is critical for the success of this micropile. So at that point, we decided just to halt what they were doing, and just try to analyze what was going on. And Helitech suggested we get additional borings, and that's when we contacted Brandon. They had done a boring previously, but we had just asked them to do 1 boring to go down about 60 or 70 feet. And now we've asked to do 4 or 5 more borings to really go down and really see what's going on. And part of his proposal is to utilize a camera to try to visually see what's going on in some of these borings, and do a little more lab work on the soil, test the samples that they take as it goes by, as they perform that boring.
Anything you want to add, Brian? We've been talking to you several times over the course of the last year and a half, and especially with the panels and everything else, and how important this is to make sure that eventually we can bring the safe room up to be a safe room like it's supposed to be, rather than just right now it's serving as a gymnasium. But to bring it up to safe room code, we have to make sure we get some of these things done.
Yeah, when we saw the initial settlement and we started monitoring it, at that point was when we noticed that panel-to-panel connections had actually failed. It had pulled out from, is it the second and third panel or the third and fourth? I can't remember.
I believe third and fourth.
Third and fourth. So that was a red flag from a structural engineering standpoint, because we've had a separation. first thing then was, is the building safe to use? We reached out to Salmons, who was the original designer for the precast component. And since this is a safe room designed for 250-mile-an-hour winds, it's a factor of about 10 compared to like the building we're in. So the building does work as two C-shaped diaphragms, and that's why we can still keep it open today for the students for regular use. We just can't use it as a safe room. The one thing we didn't want to do is just stitch it back together because we knew we had a settlement issue that needed to be addressed, and what we don't want to do is repair it, and then if it settles more and it breaks the connections, because right now the panel-to-panel connection, the double T connection is very repairable. If you repaired it and it busted again, you may get into a much more expensive repair. So even after we stabilize the building, get the micropiles or whatever system we end up with, we'll still monitor the building for a period of time to make sure the settlement stopped. Once we're confident it's stopped, then we'll get into repairing the panel connection. We've already got a detail, Salmons already has the detail prepared for it, and then it'll be opened back up as a safe room as well. But it's perfectly safe to be using it right now.
I have some questions. Because I did a walkthrough through Columbia when I was notified of that. There's stuff falling.
Yeah,
So if it's being used, how are we making sure that those children that are in there, that something's not going to fall out of the blue?
They did, at one point, were they blocking off the area?
They had installed some plywood to catch the pieces that were dropping from the ceiling.
I mean, those were pretty good. I mean, there was some good chunks. So not big, I'm not saying huge, but is that the only area that's dropping? I mean, can it drop in the middle of the?
The building's got a hinge in it now, so I would be surprised, because especially farther back, because unless we have a much bigger unknown here that's.
So the
no indication of
unknown
that right
is
now.
we know that it's a mining town. Have we gotten all the maps of everything underground, knowing what?
They had done that during the initial construction when they moved the safe room because of concerns they found when they started the original project
Right.
at a different location there on the site.
So there has been research done on mining maps 2 different times.
Okay.
And I've personally spoken
And they're
to-
I know of a surveying company that's been here. I mean, they've got books going way back, so they can locate them everywhere. But I just wanted to make sure that those were monitored, because if it could go deeper.
Oh, yeah, that's what the new proposal from Palmton Parish is to try to figure out. We've identified something around the 40, 50-foot range from the helitech borings, that there's a soft soils or a cavity, or they just had a drill bit, and I think they said between 40 and 50 it just dropped about 10 feet. So there's something there, and hopefully Palmton Parish can help us identify that. The helitech, they've looked at it, and assuming that there was just a cavern there, they have a solution that can work using the same system, but it's a bigger diameter rod, so there'll be additional costs with that. But what the proposed fix is now could still possibly work. That's based on some assumptions. Hopefully we'll have better answers, and we'll know exactly what will work there. And that's why helitech, they've requested additional information so they can finalize their design and make sure it's safe, not based on assumptions, but based on actual information.
Okay.
Do we have an idea, excuse me, of cost once we do this, checking the soil and these cavities?
On the repairs?
On repairs?
Had helitech given any estimate on what it could go to?
Not really. The original contract, I believe, was 120, 127, somewhere in that range.
And is that the safe room, the panels all brought back together, or is that just the boring?
That's just taking care of the settlement.
Foundation.
How much boring was done when we, and that was built before my time, but how much boring or soil did we look at prior to moving that?
We've had 3 different geotech companies there, and kind of the way it evolved. It wasn't anything against any of the other previous companies. It's just we took proposals in the early design phases of the FEMA shelters, and I think our companies did 11 FEMA shelters for Joplin schools, and Brian's company actually wrote the grant for all the FEMA shelters. They secured the grant for all Joplin FEMA shelters. I think there's 15 or 16 of them.
16. Yeah.
And so there were some geotech reports done at that point. They researched the maps. There wasn't any indication of any mining activity at Columbia at that point. Then as they started the construction, it was originally going to be on the east side of Columbia. And as they were scraping some soil back, it looked like what had maybe been a mine shaft had been filled in. So we had, at that point, we had another geotech who was providing material testing during the construction time on site, and they're the ones that actually saw that. So the school contracted with that company to do some additional borings. At that point, they thought there might have been a mining activity, and by looking at a mine map, they actually moved it, because back 100 years ago, the surveying and mapping wasn't always that accurate. They'd go out but anyway, they actually moved this map to make it fit what they thought was the condition at that site. So it really wasn't supposed to be on that site, but as they moved it over, it seemed to fit what we were experiencing. At that point, Joplin administration and school board decided to move the building to the west side. We had additional borings at that site pre-construction, and everything looked pretty good except at this corner where we're having some problems. It looked like there was some uncontrolled fill, which was assumed to be possibly a basement of an old house that may have been there, and pretty traditional that they would just push all the debris in the house and cap it over. That's what that was assumed to be, because it's a fairly small footprint. And so that was identified, and that was taken care of during construction. It was removed and compacted to the density that was required in the specifications. That was all tested. A year or so later is when we noticed some settlement, and we had that same geotech do some additional borings. And everyone felt like maybe it was just kind of a slow settlement, that maybe we're seeing the end of it, so it was decided just to watch it. We put some crack monitors on the building that we knew precisely how much movement was occurring.
How much movement in the last, say, year has it? Do you remember any of the figures?
I believe it's in the 3/4 of an inch range at the worst, because it actually grew as you went further up on the panel. It's less at the lower. So there's 2 crack panels on that, or crack monitors on that panel. And then at that point, it was determined that we really don't think this settlement has stopped. And let's start looking at some options. And that's when we took proposals from Helitech and 2 other companies to provide the micro tiles. So we've had quite a bit of geotech on this property, a lot more than traditionally we would have on a school of this size.
And I just have one more question. Once we get this figured out and the boring's done and the everything's stitched up, it'll all 250-mile-an-hour winds. There won't be any structural issues.
Correct. So the Salmons will come in, and once it's stabilized, they'll do the panel-to-panel and basically the precast fixes. They'll do those. Our office will also make sure that we're meeting all the FEMA criteria, which the concern there is the gap between the panel. We're not going to try to raise the building. That's not really feasible. Under the current code, you couldn't have a gap over 3/8 of an inch. We're over that now.
Right.
When this was built, 1/2 inch, 3/4 was common. It was never an issue, but it changed for the 2015. So the repair is probably going to require a steel plate, the full height of the panel on either the inside or the outside. We may even integrate that into the repairs to make sure you don't have a conflict between stitching the panels back together and the plate. That's strictly for the missile impact protection, and it may just be fastened to one side and maybe not, but maybe both. But that's just in a 1/4 inch steel plate will meet the FEMA impact criteria. It's a 15-pound 2x4 at 100 miles an hour. And then also, because the folks up at SEMA, we've kind of informed them what's going on as well, and we've kept them updated. So we'll make sure that you meet all the SEMA, FEMA criteria to operate as a safe room. And the big thing really is the joint, not just there, but also on the roof, because the double T to double T, you got a little bit less requirement there. It's a 66 mile-an-hour impact, and we'll probably do the repair from underneath, because we don't want to tear out any more roofing or insulation than we need to, and we can do that from underneath. Same thing, probably just be a steel plate. You can paint it to match the ceiling color.
So I got to ask, are there grant opportunities for the fix?
For the fix, no.
Are you
We
sure?
can always add, and the main reason is, your disaster that this was all funded under was closed out long ago. I think Joplin even received additional funds at the end. A lot of school districts did, because there's 120 plus grantees in that round. A lot of people didn't go forward, or their budgets came in under budget, so additional money became available. I know because you guys got paid for the property of where the safe rooms went, which was the first time that had ever occurred in Missouri, where you got a value for the land. So we can ask, but the mitigation grants, they're the mitigation, and so it's not really to repair the safe room. And if we did, there's no money available at the state right now anyways. And so it'd be a long process, and you can't start construction until you get approval. And we don't want to delay this. We want to try to get it. And that's the reason when we saw the settlement continuing, we didn't want to wait and see if it may stop another inch down, because the more movement, the more concern we have with the existing building. Right now, it's pretty much separated on, well, up to one side and the top. The far panels, the last time I was there, we hadn't seen the separation occurring there, but it's likely to happen. The repair will be that full joint all the way around to make sure we don't have an issue.
How big is it now? Because you can put a cell phone through it. Because
Yeah, I mean, because you got to think we've got about, it's about 40 feet up where it's failing. The panel's 30 feet, so if it drops, actually maybe less than that.
Yeah, no, it is less.
Yeah, because I told you today I forgot the number, about 30 feet. But if it dropped an inch, the panel at the top's moving about an inch. It was probably 3/4 to an inch to begin with. So yeah, I mean, beforehand you could have passed a phone through it if there wasn't the caulking in there. So for your concern on possible other areas, the best thing to do there is just your janitors to look, it's a painted surface, see if there's any cracks appearing. If you see a crack that you don't think was there before, notify Kyle or our office. But I would be surprised, because it found a weak point. This building is, again, designed for 250 mile-an-hour winds. It's also designed for 100 PSF rubble load. So the bearing pressure that's on our footings, we have not seen the ultimate load it's designed for actually overturning controls. So we're getting a settlement occurring with a bearing that's probably half, maybe less than half of what it's designed for, which is a bigger indication that it's something deeper, because we haven't come close to seeing the design loads on the foundations.
So what we're talking about this evening is taking a look, right? And you're looking at 4 holes, and what is before us is an amount not to exceed $21,100 at 115 feet of depth. So basically the cost to go 115 and take a look is about $5,000 per hole.
There's a lot of things that go into that. There's obviously the rig. There's a geologist with the rig. There's a 2-man crew. There's a downhole camera. That'd probably take, if all holes go that deep, in addition to the soil drilling, and we have to assume some conditions just to get to that deep. So we say 120 feet of soil drilling, but then there's an additional minimum of 10 foot of rock core in the bottom of each of those holes as well. And that's the criteria in which Helitech requested. If we can show we have 10 foot of competent rock, that's what they can socket their micropiles into and support the building. So that's our ultimate goal, is to determine which stratum, or where is that stratum that they can bear in, and at what depth is that?
Didn't they hit rock or boulder at a shallower depth on one and they ended up punching through? I think.
I don't know about the punching through. They
Or
socketed.
they drilled through. I mean, there's one of them I thought they hit. And
Correct.
we work with Helitech and them a lot, so I may be getting projects mixed up. But I was thinking there was one that at a shallower depth they hit rock, and as they socket through it, it punched through that.
Can you give me an idea of the width of the hole that's being drilled for the borescope?
So it's for our investigative boring. It's probably going to be, the auger is, the inner diameter is roughly 4.5 inches. So the outer diameter is 8-9 inches. So that would allow us to put something down the hole. So we'll drill with the auger that has a hole or hollow inner. And then if we get to that depth at which we think there's a void or possible to do with soft soils, possibly mine related, we don't know, we could then trip out and put a down the hole camera in the hole and see if there is a void, or see if it's just saturated soft infill material that they're losing grout in, something like that.
But from a grandma point of view, and your parents and your grandparents, and if your children went to Columbia, are you comfortable with your children having PE in there every day?
Yeah, I would be, yes.
Okay. So our kids are safe to have daily PE in there. It just doesn't meet tornado standards right now.
Correct.
Wind standards.
Yeah, and that building as it stands now is still a lot stronger than the old buildings there. Even with that joint, it's the strength there, just because it's designed for so much more to begin with. Even weakened is a better option than anything in town that's not a safe room.
I have two questions. One, will the work be done while the kids are on campus, or will the work be done at another time?
It's my understanding it can be done while they're on campus. But that doesn't mean we'd necessarily be using the gym. And that's another reason we want to get it done at this time. If it's too noisy, if it's too much confusion or whatever, it's, in the warmer temperatures, it's kind of good to be able to have an isolated area. So it's my understanding we can start any time, right?
Yeah, as far as we shouldn't be that much disruption. I don't know how. I think
What's
we
your
could do
timeline for doing it? How long will this take?
Once we got notice to proceed, I think field work, roughly 5-6 days for us. And then we would be the whole time talking with the design team, what are we finding, what's the next step. Probably another week or two of that to kind of button up a report. Here's our findings.
Okay. And then my other question is that this is a change order, so what was the previous amount not to exceed?
I don't know that we didn't use the term exceed, I can't recall, but I want to say the last time was about $4,000 to $6,000 on our geotech.
No, I think yours was around 1,500 on that last one.
Just the one boring to 60 feet with no analysis, no engineering, nothing. Yeah, that was, I think.
I'm sorry, I was quoting the geotech.
The original.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a change order of how much? $20,000?
Not to exceed 21.1.
Not to exceed 21,000.
I know, I was just wondering what we had approved previously.
What the original
Is
bid
what I was
was.
wondering. You what?
What the original bid
Yeah, what was the original bid for this work?
What is 127 or something for the?
Well, for the total, but I'm just wondering, because this is a change order, so we had to have approved something initially. That's what I just was wondering, what we initially approved.
Well, I think the change
And I
order-
understand that the scope of the work has changed, but.
Yeah, I think what we were trying to do was we were trying to go ahead and get the micropiles in place. And once we found the micropiles are not able to be put in place because we're not 100% sure of what's there, the change order is for more investigation, is really what the change order is for.
Change order is not for Helitech, it's for Palmton Parish's initial.
I think that's what Jennifer's
They weren't
asking, is
in
what was the original
The
order
original bid would
with
not
Palmer
have
Town
come
Parish?
for board approval because it was less than the
It was less than
$15,000.
$15,000.
So we used our typical bidding
Okay, so it was
procedures
something
to do
less than
that. So this is in
15,000.
addition to now the change order for further investigation with the same company.
And is this in addition to what we've already paid, so an additional 21,000, so we've already paid
Yes,
so much,
yes.
and then this is so.
Yes, and I want to make sure, if everything went well, I want to throw this out. We would hope that next month we would be possibly, if it goes well, we would be ready to discuss what the actual additional cost would be for the micro piles versus what we had originally put in for. Correct?
I believe so.
Hopefully. And again, I want to stress this. It's not comforting to anybody because we want it to be in there sooner rather than later, that if all goes well and we go ahead and put the micro piles in with whatever we decide the cost is going to be in addition to what we thought it was, because it's probably going to be a little bit more, it's still going to take time for us to wait to make sure it doesn't move again, which means it's not functional as a safe room. Thankfully, it's going into the winter months. We typically don't have tornadoes, but the hope would be once March and April comes around, at that time, then we need to fix the stress panels. You see what I'm saying? So we're in for a long haul here.
So what do we offer to our Columbia families then in the interim? Where do they go if they needed a safe room?
They can go to any of the 3 buildings closest to them, and we've kind of pushed them towards West Central.
Okay.
But Jefferson's also available, and I guess Royal Heights as well too, depending on where some of the Columbia parents live.
North.
And North doesn't have a designated tornado safe room, but if school is in session, yes, we wouldn't turn anybody away.
And do we communicate this to our Columbia parents that, look, the problem is continuing, so here are the places you can go in the meantime?
Well, it's on I don't know in the last time, I think Shelley's done a pretty good job of continuing to communicate, but we also still run it on our website. It's
And we
header
did
on
a
our website.
direct mail back last spring.
Shelley has been talking to her parents constantly.
I did get a phone call
She
this
does a
week
good job
saying,
of that.
when are we going to get a safe room? Columbia just seems to always get the shaft. No pun intended.
As frustrating as it is, I think that we have to spend whatever amount rationally to get this finished. I mean, it has to be done, it has to be fixed. So I will make a motion that we approve this change order.
Thank you, Lori. Is there a
I will second.
Thank you, Deb. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this change order. Is there any further discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. That's the best description and explanation that I've heard of what has happened at that area. And it's, if we had laser beam eyes or X-ray eyes or whatever, I guess we could have seen this coming.
Well, and that's part of the problem with geotech. All you know is the 4-inch or whatever size boring is. And it's amazing how much it can vary just a few feet over. And, just like the 2 I described, they were only a few feet apart. One went over 100 foot, one stopped at 80 feet. And we have a lot of pinnacles in this area where the limestone comes up to a pinnacle. And it seems like you're hitting something that might be a big solid shelf of bedrock, but it may just be a big column of stone that is what is pretty typical around our area.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next, we have the approval of design and development drawings to proceed with construction phase of this building. Dr. Saketa again.
Okay, so Chad Greer is here all by himself, and he is, as you know, is working with us. We've hired him to help with the design and all the essentials that we need to make Memorial Education Center, at least the first floor, a vibrant adult educational center for some of our career programs that we have. And Penny Williams is here also, and Dave Rockers. You're all welcome to come on up here. They're shy tonight. Come on up. Come on up.
Penny said not to call her up.
We went through, we meet a lot because in the early stages, there's a lot of things to discuss and a lot of ideas, and Chad's done a good job of working with the staff at Franklin Tech adult programs and trying to address their needs, and also try to work within the confines of what we have and the budget we have as well. So, Chad, go.
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening, and I'd like to second what Dr. Sketa said. It's been a pleasure working with Dave Pettit, Penny, and Dave here. They and their staff have been wonderful to work with, so great work there. So basically tonight's update is schematic design. It will represent kind of where we are to date, and if so approved, we would move forward in putting together the construction documents and some of the details associated with getting it out and ready for bid. One of the things Penny and I were discussing earlier is the next step would be that we would really start to get into these individual spaces and fine-tune some of the specific requirements that the teachers would need for their individual areas. And we've already made some pretty good headway to date from a 30,000-foot level, but we'll start to really refine that as we move forward and get down to some of the nut and bolt details. But what you see in front of you is a floor plan showing the extent of the scope of work. The blue areas shown there represent the individual programmatic spaces that we'll be remodeling as part of this. That would include lighting, wall finishes, paint, and millwork items. Also flooring. The gray area there is shown there will be in a subsequent phase, but since there's abatement taking place where the flooring is being removed, we've had a lot of discussions about going ahead and replacing the floor there with carpet and or a vinyl tile in preparation for future phases. So to jump into the schematic design concept, if you would please. This is, it's upside down from the other plan, but you see on the bottom of the page, you see the front entry steps that lead down into the main corridor that runs west and east. Next, please. So we really tried to focus in on a couple of lab spaces just to kind of clarify the overall design intent and direction that we wanted to take this. So if you'd advance to the next, please. This is a shot looking west from the main entry down the corridor. There are a lot of existing conditions that we're trying to work around and with to stretch the budget as far as we can. On the left side, you see some tack boards that are original and currently installed in the building, and we're going to do a gradation along there, tying in the overall brand identity of Franklin Tech and the overall finishes. Next slide. There's a shot showing that. Next, please. And then we've got several areas where there are banks of lockers currently installed, and through multiple conversations about whether or not the lockers would be needed, the end result being not needed, we came up with a couple of creative opportunities there for stand-up laptop counters as well as bench and social areas within the oversized main corridor there with the removal of those lockers. There would be some graphic work associated with some of the floor patterns with the new FTC logo. Next. And then a typical classroom space, we're looking at some surfacing material for marker boards and really working with the instructors on some of their specific requirements for layouts and the teaching and instructional spaces. And this is an example of the lab space. Each one of them is kind of unique in their own right, but we wanted to kind of convey the overall design direction for the teaching wall as well as some of the instructional spaces associated with those labs. And I think as we continue each one of these spaces, we'll take a little bit of refinement and additional conversations with staff to make sure that we're meeting their needs and expectations. Next slide is a sample showing the overall intended finishes. And the intent and the discussion up to this point has been very professional and adult-oriented finishes that convey a sense of professionalism. And I think that the finishes presented here that we've worked with Penny and her team in selecting really kind of match that objective. So at this time, I'll open it up for any questions you guys may have. Again, we're still at the schematic design phase, and we're going to continue to refine this as we move forward. But just wanted to give you guys an update on where we are.
Which programs is it we're bringing here?
we're bringing several programs over, medical assistant, surge tech, practical nursing,
Medical office assistant.
medical assistant.
And they're out of Southern, but they're coming here.
That's correct.
We have my cheat sheet, sorry.
Well, that's okay. We talk.
It looks great.
It's beautiful.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, I'm sorry, but we are really, really excited about this, and it's coming together, and to see the scope and the instructors' input. It's I don't know. It's just all coming together very, very well.
Yep.
Excited to see it when it's finished.
We've got a little bit of a road ahead of us because there's a lot of existing things, I'll call them, whether it be speakers, projectors, and making sure that we get a good handle on the overall scope of work that the contractors can expect a bid from is going to be our next focus, making sure that we get it as clear and accurate as we can.
Motion?
Well, from my perspective, this building has always been an institution of higher education, and I'm glad to know that it will continue in that capacity. Do we have a motion to authorize continuation of this project?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved.
Second.
Thank you, Deb. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
I had a question.
Oh, we have questions. I apologize, Jennifer. Take your time, find it.
It's gone.
You sure?
Yeah, yes, yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sure that Mr. Greer would be happy to entertain your phone
If
call.
I think of it, I'll
answer the
ask,
questions
yeah.
you may
I
have.
think
Anytime. As an interesting side note, 3 of my staff, myself included, went to junior high here.
Well, it's much better high school than it ever was in junior high. Just let you know.
Well, that was one of the things that came out in our research at our 100-year anniversary in January, was that it's one of the few buildings of that age that you can say has always maintained a continual purpose, which is the education in this community. And it's never not.
I believe at one time it was Joplin Junior High, which is now Missouri Southern State University.
Seen a lot of people come through. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a very comfortable building to me. I love it.
The walls could talk.
Every time I walk across that to
Memorial Middle.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've been at it a while, friends. Did you want to continue or take a brief break?
I vote for potty break.
All righty, let's take 5 minutes, please.
I just saw the
We'll resume our agenda, whatever I did with it. Oh, it's right in front of me. I apologize. We are on item G3, asbestos abatement change order number 1 here. Dr. Saketa?
Okay, we have Dave here to talk about what was needed additionally here at Memorial because of some things that we found. Dave?
As we just discussed, this building, 100 years old and has served in many capacities and still had some hidden treasures for us. So we're bringing to you, as they were performing the abatement, we found some as yet unidentified areas of asbestos that we needed to abate. And so we're bringing to you a change order tonight of $3,225 to take care of those additional issues.
Thank you, Dave. Does anybody have any questions for Dave concerning this request?
I do, I think. I know we approved it in June, and I went back and looked, and it talked about first floor and third floor, and it had 29,900 square feet. I'm just wondering, is this something that we didn't know existed in those 2 floors or on the first floor? Or is this something that that they didn't account for?
These were both things that were actually hidden from view. Some of the areas that we abated were a built-up floor, and so to abate that, they were on plywood. So we went ahead and took the whole plywood. When they took that up, underneath the frame floor was more asbestos, floor tile. So they couldn't have known that unless you tore that out to begin with to be able to see that. The risers took place, most of those are from the old boiler system that this building used to run, and most of them were in the corner and were framed in, and so we took that framing out and found that there was still asbestos. Some of the pipes have had fiberglass put on it, but we still found 5 additional ones that had asbestos on them.
Okay. I mean, my concern would be, we had different businesses bid the contract, and we accepted the lowest bid, but if we continue to do these orders, these change orders, I mean, we might have been better off going with Gherkin Environmental, initially, had they put a bid in that might have been able to foresee some of the problem. I just can't imagine some of these contractors not assuming that we might find extra asbestos under some of the flooring, and them have not calculated that into some of their
being covered
estimates.
over. It was atypical with the way that was done. Was not what we would consider typical construction for that, because most of the time if they built up those floors, they would have eliminated whatever flooring was underneath that before. And where those were at, there would have been no way to have investigated that without tearing out the original asbestos floor.
Okay. That was my question or concern.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Dave.
I move we pay for the asbestos abatement.
I will second that.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you, Derek. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this change order. There being no further discussion, I ask that you vote.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes. Accounts payable, Dr. Langford.
Yes, you received the information that about accounts payable. Again, things continue to be normal. If you compare to accounts payable for this meeting last year, we are higher, but we had an extra payment in here because we're really late at the end of the month here. Also, we have paid for 8 school buses, and we paid for some rooftop units of about $270,000 or something to that effect. So I don't see anything in here. It is higher, but they're all explainable, and the other bills are just routine cost of getting school started up again. So I would, if you have specific questions, I'd try to help you address them. If not, well, I would recommend that we approve the accounts payable.
I'll move we approve accounts payable to the.
I second.
Thank you, Dr. Langford, and thank you, Jennifer and Deb, for their motion and second that we approve our accounts payable. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. The tax levy for 2018 and 19, we're back to Dr. Langford, and I believe this is a reiteration of the beginning of our meeting this evening.
Right, we really don't need to repeat unless you would have questions you thought of since that time, what we went over, but we didn't do the calculation. So the recommendation would be that the board would approve the setting of the operating tax rate of $2.7864 for operations. And also, I would recommend that you set a tax rate of 91 cents for debt service, which brings us to a total of $3.6964, and that compared to last year of $3.7029. So if we do that, well, then the president can sign the documents, and we can fax them tomorrow to the appropriate clerk's office in both counties and get our process underway. These have to be done by September 1.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Does anybody have any additional questions concerning the tax levy for Dr. Langford?
I will move that we set the proposed tax levy at 3.6964 for 2018-19.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Could we ask you to actually state the levies for each one? So that
Okay,
it is clear.
okay, I was thinking total, because just as proposed. So I will move that we set the,
General
levy at 2.7864, and the debt service, or the special special revenue fund at 91 cents for the debt service fund. Debt service fund, yeah.
Yes.
That was right, yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. I believe Ms.
Somewhere in there, I think I
Martucci
got
has
it.
stated a motion consistent with what is in our board packet.
Yes.
And it's been
Should've
seconded
just
by
said as
Dr. Ford.
proposed.
And so we thank them for their efforts, and I ask you for your votes.
Yes.
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 Yes. Item G6, non-resident tuition for 2018-19.
Right.
We stay with Dr. Langford.
But this will be my last one. Each year, the school district sets tuition that it might charge an out-of-district student. As a general rule, does not take out-of-district students, but there are certain cases if a person, if someone would own property in the district, well, then they are allowed by law to attend here, paying the tuition rate minus the taxes paid. And so this is pretty typical of schools in our area, and really we don't see a lot of movement. So we did the calculation. Shelley generated the calculation, and the proposed, or the recommended tuition rate for this current year would be $8,129.34. That is up slightly from last year, 1.77%, I believe. And there are two reasons for that. Number one, we spent a little bit more, not all that much more last year, but we had a drop in the average daily attendance. So just the drop in the average daily attendance, if we spent exactly the same, would raise the levy. But if you look at the average in the state of Missouri, somewhere in terms of close to, in the vicinity of $10,000, $8,129.34 is certainly not out of line. And we'd recommend you approve that rate.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Do we have a motion?
I move we set the out-of-tuition rate at $8,129.
A second.
And 34 cents. Thank you, Deb. It's moved and seconded by Jennifer, I believe. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Jim Shipley, continuous classroom improvement, action item by Dr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay, this is our, if you'll know, the Jim Shipley is that, with our strategic plan, that was kind of the genesis of beginning this classroom improvement. And it was the whole piece of the PDSA that started our continuous improvement. And this Jim Shipley, this is the Jim Shipley group, as they had done for the last previous 2 years, worked with 3 elementary schools, Royal Heights, Kelsey Norman, and Eastmoreland. And they've worked with several teachers in that building to train them, kind of bring them some expertise to this model. And this will be the last piece of this that will give those 3 buildings the expertise that they can then give to the entire district, and legally give the Jim Shipley model. So in other words, if you use the Jim Shipley model, which is that in our strategic plan, that continuous improvement, you have to pay for that. So obviously, nothing's free. So anyway, this does give us then the right to use that and to teach. Then that become the way we do business throughout the district, and this is the last piece in that puzzle, if you will.
So this is train the trainer, and
This
now
is
those 3
that's
schools
exactly
would be
correct.
Jim Shipley trainers
That's
for the rest of our
That's
schools.
correct. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved.
I'll second.
And seconded by Brent. That we approve the training for continuous classroom improvement. Please vote.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Are we bringing them here, or are we sending?
We're bringing them here.
We're bringing them
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay. Didn't give you a chance to ask questions. Are there any other questions? There being none, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Staying with Dr. Gilbert, the enhancement grant equipment for auto tech.
Yeah, so the next 2, 8A and B, are enhancement grants that Franklin Tech has. 75% of an enhancement grant comes from the state and 25% local money match. And this A is a Snap-on Zeus engine scan station. And basically what that is a state-of-the-art. So in other words, if you went to like the state-of-the-art Chevy dealership and they were diagnosing the problem with your car, they would hook it up to all this incredible machinery and diagnose exactly and specifically what was wrong with the car. And so and as David had told me, it's the super state-of-the-art machine. Then the B piece is the chassis dynometer, and that is where you can put a vehicle up on top of a stand and put the car in drive and turn it on, and it will measure the horsepower and torque of an engine. It's, you see those on commercials, the car going really fast, but it's just spinning these rollers. That's basically what that is. So it gives kids the opportunity to see a vehicle in motion and to then check the differentiation, the U-joints, all of those things that produce horsepower and torque. And
puts a load on it.
Puts a load on,
where you can actually, it's like running down the road identically.
Yeah.
Does the 25% match come from our general fund, from Franklin Tech funds?
The Franklin Tech piece comes from Franklin Tech. Okay. Yeah, that's correct.
I would make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Derek. It's been moved and seconded by?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. It's been moved and seconded. I do have a question. I noticed that this engine scan station is a Snap-on product, and so all 3 bids were very nearly the same, just a few dollars difference. Are there alternate options for that type of equipment, or is Snap-on the only manufacturer? You wouldn't know.
To the best of my knowledge, the Snap-on was the best of the more state-of-the-art
for our kids.
Snap-on is kind of the industry standard right now with.
And it's possible that was a specification in the grant.
Could be.
Since this is coming from grant.
Snap-on makes it is the top of the line. There's.
Great. I'll take. Was that motion made for A and for all of A?
A and B,
Thank
yes.
you. Okay. I'd ask that you vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Kids are going to be lucky with all that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same stuff that Torqued and all the big shops have.
Absolutely.
So,
So many good things going on at Franklin Tech.
Yes.
Enhancement grant equipment for TV production. Dr. Gilbert, we'll stay with you.
So this is the TV guys, Jet 14, all those guys are super excited about this enhancement grant for them because it will allow them to purchase new camera equipment that is like the state-of-the-art camera equipment, and it's the same matching grant, and I want to say they're 4K cameras, but that has just exhausted my knowledge of my real depth of knowledge on that particular.
I was impressed.
I will tell you this, that if that Nathan has promised me that if this goes through, that he will shoot a video from my group that I can then publish on my YouTube channel. Very excited.
Well, then by all means, I move we approve this.
Absolutely. But it is actually, it's very good recording equipment and camera equipment, and will then further their work. It's my understanding, too, that the equipment that they have is better than any of the local television stations, which...
I tell you, the productions that we've been able to witness here as board members are outstanding. And so it's good to see that we're going to continue and improve upon and build upon what we have.
The things that Nathan and Brad Douglas and Nathan, they're just incredible, and their wealth of knowledge. And I've gone over there in the summer and asked them, hey, could you shoot a video for something with curriculum? Or, it's like, hey, yeah, let's go do it right now.
That facility over there is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully our community will take advantage of those opportunities that they may have to help educate our students on this equipment. I believe that Dr. Ford motioned that we approved of this.
To the audio production equipment enhancement.
And it was seconded by Deborah Gould. It was very quietly done. I hope that I'm correct in making those statements. Are there any other questions concerning this expenditure?
What do we do with the old cameras? Because our old cameras are probably nicer than some people's current cameras.
I think they'll hang on to those and continue to use them. Yeah.
I ask that you vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes. Item 10, we're back to Dr. Saketa. Declare miscellaneous items surplus and authorize auction.
Okay, as we came to you a couple months ago, we had some items to surplus, and Dave's here to explain a little bit more about it. As you know, also, one of the items on here are copiers. You just purchased a lot of brand new copiers for the district, and we've been installing them, and very soon we'll have everybody trained up, hopefully better for the second run. In fact, this week, by Thursday, we're going to all the buildings, and Steve has a plan too to offer some extra support in the building to make sure we get the new copiers up and running very effectively. So copiers are on there, antiquated food service equipment, some grass turf maintenance products, an old table from the boardroom, and some other miscellaneous items. Dave, is there anything you want to add?
No, just let you know that was just a few weeks ago. We had our last auction, and I've got another full building. And after we get this one cleared out, I've got at least a half a building coming back that we're still got sitting in the schools. So we're just asking that you declare these items surplus. It's our intent, if you pass this evening, we're looking at our next auction to take place on Saturday, September the 22nd.
Thank you, Dave. Does anybody have any questions for Dave Pettit?
No, I'll move we declare miscellaneous items surplus and authorize auction to be held.
A second.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Dr. Ford. It's been moved and seconded that we declare these miscellaneous items surplus and authorize an auction. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Staying with Dr. Saketa, storage server and data protection upgrades.
Yes. Eric, would you like to visit about some of the intricacies of these items, these two items?
Could we get some sticky stuff?
Duct tape.
Actually, unfortunately, that's kind of what we've been doing at the Roy Wood is our data center, and the equipment in there is like going on 10 years old. A lot of it too, with the damage of the tornado that came through, a lot of that wasn't replaced because the data center was intact, so we didn't get a lot of that equipment replaced either. So this is really, I don't know how much everybody knows about networking and stuff, but this is our domain controllers, which houses our domain service lookup, our DHCP, which hands out the IP address for the computers. Everybody talks to this to get to the outside and everything. So so it's to redo our virtual service farm, really. So
It's like a necessity. It's a big necessity.
I mean, we're constantly going out there now, and a drive goes out, and we're hoping when we stick another one in that it'll format it and pick up okay.
Oh.
And it's also our backup system. is really old also, and I would like to say right now I could guarantee 100%, but I can't. If a system went down, I could pull it back up and bring another server online, but I can't say with 100% certainty we could do that right
So
now.
updating it, will it affect anything? I mean, is this going to be like a domino effect because you're going to be updating it to this century? And then you're got, you know, I don't know much about it, but I would want to make sure that
Well,
we'll have to start
prior to these
cleaning up
last
afterwards.
few years with the E-rate, switches, access points, everything we've been upgrading, and so this is kind of one of the last pieces of the puzzle.
Great.
To go.
Eric, why is there such a difference in the bids? 24,000 versus 83,000?
Well, I would probably look at the brand names associated with those.
Okay.
And, I mean, Dell is very good, but they're also very proud of their name.
Okay.
So,
It's a lot of pride there.
Except for on their cheap laptops.
Shall we take them together, I guess, in totality? There's two items here that Eric has presented for our approval.
well, the second one is actually the Wi-Fi controller. Is that what you're talking about?
Well,
The
it's a
HP
software
Aruba?
agreement renewal. I'm sorry, you're right.
HP Aruba.
This is a software agreement renewal on the second item. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Yes.
It says storage and server upgrades.
And data protection.
And then there's the backup system that's part of that one action item. And then the next action item is actually on the Wi-Fi controller service and maintenance.
Does everybody understand?
Yeah, and that's at a total cost of $90,000, correct?
Not with the Wi-Fi controller. That's just the server upgrades and the backup.
Okay.
So those two items are together in this?
Those two items.
Yeah,
are
those two
together.
items are together in this, and that's the 90 whatever.
Right, that's the,
And then there's a second item, number 12, Hewlett-Packard.
Aruba.
So I think what Sherrick was saying is, do we want to approve both of those items simultaneously?
I just wanted to make that, we haven't really talked about that. I mean.
well, why don't we go ahead and take the first item first, then. Let's clean this up a little bit. I would accept a motion.
I'll move that we approve the purchase of the server storage and data protection.
Thank you, Brent.
I'll second.
And thank you, Derek. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the purchase of the server storage and data protection. That item is a $24,274.81 item.
The Aruba Hewlett-Packard or these, what are we talking about?
It's Unitrends.
Oh, Unitrend, that's the backup solution.
So we're approving Unitrend at $24,274.81, and then we're also approving IASG at $66,690. Right.
Which are together.
Into one.
Yes.
Okay, so both of those are taken on this item, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Thank you, I apologize. I hope that you understand where we are in this, Pat, because I've really kind of bumbled this.
I'm sorry if I threw
total
some
of
extra confusion in there. Yes, I just want to make sure we're talking about
Thank you,
this.
Dr.
Yes.
Moss.
I
Does everybody
second.
understand where we are? Deb?
He moved. I second.
Okay, great. Okay, Brent has moved and Dr. Ford has seconded. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, and thank you, Eric. I'm sorry I did that to you just now. We'll move now to the, is that the Hewlett-Packard?
Hewlett-Packard Aruba, which is our wireless controller. And we have, I would say, close to 1,000 access points in the district. And so this is our central unit that helps us just control them from one location. We've had support on it before, but it's usually with the vendor we bought it from, and it's not directly with Aruba, and that's kind of what this action item is doing, is we're actually, because we always get transferred to Aruba because Joplin's situations that we run into are pretty unique. And, I mean, we always get transferred there, so we just want to move directly to there to eliminate some of the downtime that we had in the past with all this stuff.
Are you supposed to paying another fee for a service we ended up going
Yeah.
to in the end anyway?
Because sometimes when we got transferred to Aruba, we'd have to pay additional fees plus hotels and stuff when they come out here to stay and stuff like that to look at our situation.
So would you not have to have other bids when you do this, or no?
Aruba is the only one, I mean, if we're going to go directly to them, they're the only ones that really offer it. The third-party vendors do offer bids, but you have to go through them first, and they'll vet it and try to solve it, and if they can't, then they'll go to Aruba. But we're asking to go directly to Aruba.
Cut out the middleman.
I would move that we approve the purchase of the HP Aruba support agreement.
I will second that.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Derek. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this purchase. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Item 13 is off our agenda, so we are now on item 14. Dr. Moss, policies for first reading.
Yes, and as Jennifer spoke to these earlier in her policy committee update, these are simply clarifying how we've been doing vacation, and it makes us consistent between support staff administrators as well as certified administrators. Or 12-month employees, I should say.
Thank you, Dr. Moss. Does anybody have any questions concerning the first reading of these policies? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I believe Derek moved and Jennifer seconded that we approve both items under 14 for first reading. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Graciously, we arrive at plus deltas.
Graciously. I like that.
Well, I know the delta may be that it took more time, but the plus is thank you for addressing everything we're doing for suicide prevention.
Thank you.
Yes.
And my highlight quote of the night is Dr. Langford's, Joplin schools are in excellent financial condition. That's music to my ears.
We covered a lot of stuff tonight. It was just a busy meeting. You can tell that we're getting back in school and things are ramping up and all busy.
I'm excited about the increased enrollment and how good I mean, my daughter came home and said it was a great first week of school. So I'm excited for what this school year is going to bring them.
Good to hear.
With those pluses and deltas, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Derek?
Second.
Seconded by Deborah Gould. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Took my